Call to order, Board of Zoning Appeals for May 13th, 2024. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from April 22nd, 2024.
Move that we approve the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Any special requests or continuances? Not tonight. Seeing none, we'll move on to findings of fact. First up is BZA 2024-007, the Development Standards Variance with petitioner Shannon Thompson for property at 1447 West Stones Crossing Road.
Chairman, in consideration of the statutory criteria, move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BCA 2024-007.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. BZA 2024-008, another development standards variance for petitioner Chris Hoffey on behalf of Greenwood Christian Academy for property at 835 West Wirtsville Road.
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of the statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2024-008.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. And next up is BCA 2024-009, a development standards variance for petitioner Gerard Rout for property at 378 Leah Way.
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2024-009.
Motion by Mr. Moll, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. We have no old business. Any old business from the floor? Seeing none on that, we'll move on to new business. First up, BZA 2024-010, a development standards variance for 703 North Graham Road. Petitioner is Larry Siegler on behalf of Shear GW5 LLC, requesting relief from two sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Number one, to reduce the minimum distance of a loading facility from 200 feet of a residential property to 85 feet from a residential property. And number two, to allow a loading area in a front yard. All those wishing to present, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary.
Do you swear not to use perjury? That's what's true to the best of your knowledge. Thank you.
Is there anyone online here for this petition? Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, yes.
You need to say something.
Are you wishing to present or speak today? I think is he on mute?
He's a representative of the owner, not intending to speak, but just here in case there's any owner-specific questions.
Right. Well,
Well,
then,
if you have to be sworn.
if he chooses to present, we'll have to swear him in at that time. Sure. Okay. All right. Then your name and address for the record.
It was mentioned Larry Siegler. My name is actually Matt Brower with Peterson Company. We work hand in hand. Larry's my partner. I don't think the message made it that I was going to be presenting tonight, but he's tied up with the high school commitment. So thank you for your time tonight.
And address for the record.
Yeah,
Sorry.
7132 Scienceville Road, Indianapolis 46268.
And then I believe is there a sheet of paper up there?
There's
I think I forgot to put it up there.
Then
okay, I do that. Again, Matt Brower, thank you for having me tonight. I am here on behalf of the Shear Property Group.
so Mr. Brown, one more moment. Is everything in order? All notices and receipts.
Notice and receipts are in order and in our file.
To offer for the evidence the municipal code and the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Now tell us why you're here.
Thank you. I am here on behalf of the Shear Property Group. They've built 703 North Graham Road. It's a building that was completed in 2023. And they are in the leasing process. They have several leases ongoing with work to commence shortly. One of which is a lease that has basically been executed, but it's pending variance approval. So this is the building that's about midway between Main Street and County Line Road, right on Graham Road there, just on the west side of the road. I'm sorry, east side. The proposed tenant is going on the south end of the building, the south 3 bays there. It's a total of 45,000 square feet. And the proposed tenant is a group named Acumen. They are a mobile medical CT, MRI, X-ray group that has 15 to 20 mobile vans or trailers that go all around the country. And whether it be in a low-income area that doesn't have the right equipment or disaster relief, or if a hospital that has some equipment go down, they travel the country to provide extra equipment for scanning and heart scans and things like that. So this tenant is, again, looking to lease approximately 45,000 square feet. The current lease would be a 10-year lease, so they intend to make a long-term commitment here. They're currently located up in Whitestown, and their facility up there no longer works for them. Long story short, they want to come to Greenwood, and we would love to have them in this building. They have designated trailer parking behind the building that's already built today. And the reason we are here tonight is because their operation works as such where they would like these high-value trailers to come in the drive-in door in the back of the building that's already there, and then pull out the front of the building from an operational standpoint and a safety standpoint for their employees. It works best that they can move those trailers through the facility and exit the front of the building, which means we have a dock door facing Graham Road, which is why we're here tonight. I apologize, it's not a dock door, it's just a drive-in door where no loading occurs, it's just an in and out for the trailers. They are projecting that they would only have 1 to 2 trailers use this access door on a daily basis. Again, there's no exterior loading, it's purely just for the vehicle to come in and out of the building. And in fact, it's our opinion that if we were to have a 45,000 square foot distribution company, we could have actually up to 8 dock doors in this suite. And that could lead to a lot of truck traffic. They are actually not going to be using the dock doors at all. So it's purely just 1 to 2 of these trailers per day coming in and out of this building, as opposed to, a much higher traffic, more intense use. So for the neighbor's sake, it feels like a really good fit and a low intensity use. This is an example of their vehicles or their trailers. So this is taken at their Whitestown facility. So you can see they're higher end, they're multi-million-dollar trailers. So they're obviously going to be well kept, clean. They like a clean, well kept operation, obviously, because they are working with high value equipment. So on the south end of the building, this is the current building condition. So this is the approved building. This is what is built today. As you can see on the west face of the building, which is the left side of the building there, today there is just car parking there with a man door on that south end. And then more of an office entrance as you work your way up north, just slightly there. This is the proposed tenant layout. So they are going to have just over 2,000 square feet of office. And now you can see towards the south end of the front of the building there, that is where we're proposing that we install a drive-in door or a drive-out door on the front side of the building. And then if you look at the back side of the building, you can see that there's the existing drive-in door today, and those line up. So they would pull right through the building, and whether it be repairs or commissioning a new trailer, things like that. And they also keep a number of their trailers inside the building as well to protect them from the elements. So you can see that's kind of the changes we're proposing there in the southeast or southwest corner of the building. We are proposing installing this style of drive-in door. This is a different building we did in the area. Frosted glass, to limit any light exposure. That was one thing that the neighbors asked for. But it's a high-end looking, and it really just blends in, honestly, with the neighboring office windows in the building. Obviously the office space will have some windows, and this blends in pretty well with that feature. So this is looking east back at the building from the car parking. There is the single door there on the right. That is the one I mentioned, and then the drive-in door will be approximately in this location. So obviously this is done by me. This is not done by an architect, but that is what we're proposing, approximately where we get an idea of the change we would make to the front of the building. Obviously, there's a little bit of grass and some landscaping there that would come out. We're replacing that, and I'll get to that in terms of landscaping, and then a subtle ramp there down to the asphalt to allow the truck to come in or out. This is kind of standing up against the building at that main door, looking west. It kind of just gives you a feel for the visibility of this location on the site. And again, we're looking south here, so the drive-in door obviously would be right to the left there, where I just previously showed you. One important note is that at this end of the building, we're proposing that they go in the south end of the building, which is actually not visible at all from Graham Road. We've taken it upon ourselves to have deep discussions with the neighbors. Obviously, this point here doesn't necessarily affect the neighbors, but I will get to that point here in a moment. But from a pure public visibility standpoint, no visibility of this new additional drive-in door. So we had a variance on this building back in 2022, 2023, which was loading dock distance from property line. We got a variance to decrease that a little bit. So we had a previous approval of a variance. We came in the first time and we took the message loud and clear that we needed to work with the neighbors, and came back at a later date after working with the neighbors and got that variance approved. So this time around, we knew who to reach out with, which is Mr. Victor Pear. Victor takes the lead with all the neighbors right in this immediate vicinity, and he speaks on their behalf, if I can say that for Victor. I believe that to be the case. So we reached out to Victor on an informal basis, offered to meet in person. We never ended up meeting in person this time around, but we did send a proposed letter of what we would be willing to agree to, or what we'd be willing to offer if they would be okay with us adding this front drive-in door. So what we ended up doing was adding 12 new larger landscaping trees, and they're strategically in line of sight, directions from where that new drive-in door would be. So and I'll show you. So they actually edited our original letter and added new trees down here, going from 3 to 9 evergreens there on the south end of the site, which we would happily agree with. We also agreed that we would not install any alarms or buzzers on the overhead door, so it doesn't make any noise. The door will be power operated, so it's as loud as a garage door opening, which is not going to be, you're not going to be able to hear that from the neighbors' homes. And we also agreed that we would incorporate any of these agreement points into future leases, so nobody has to, the neighbors don't have to be worried about this tenant going away in 1 year, let alone 10, and then a new use comes in and all these agreements change. So we kind of agreed to carry this through to any future leasing. We also agreed that we would do this frosted glass door, which cost-wise is a significant upgrade, but again, more than happy to do it. And frankly, with the front face of the building being where the majority of our office is, it makes a lot of sense for us to do an upgrade to we're there. So we showed you that upgraded door. We agreed to do the frosted glass, which kind of minimizes any interior light exiting the building. And then we also agreed to, the city of Greenwood's lighting requirements, and any additional lighting would be a down lighting design. Agreed completely with that. They made a couple edits, which we agreed with all of those. This is the updated landscape to reflect exactly what they requested. This has been sent to the city. And then this has obviously all been happening in the, currently. Victor, we actually ended up signing the agreement. Victor sent us a letter that basically said, if you could incorporate these changes, which was everything in red above, we could, it's not blocked off on your side, I'm sorry. If you can incorporate these changes, we can all move forward. So we believe we have the buy-in of the neighbors. We learned from last time that we need to do that on the front end. We did that this time around. So we have an agreement with the neighbors that I believe everybody is on board with, and we expect to have this signed within a matter of hours or days. So we believe everybody's on board there. This is the detailed statement of reasons. Forgive me, but do I need to read this?
We will, if you, yeah.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do that, get that read into the record. If you want to start, well, and I think your answers were the same to both. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
so these will apply to both the requests. So number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because. And then if you can read your answer, your response to that.
The variance allows for the design and development of an industrial building that is complementary to the surrounding buildings in Greenwood of similar industrial style.
Yep. Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The current tract is developed with a 169,000 square foot building and improvements with adding of the door. No net decrease in value would occur in our opinion. It's just adding an upscale door to the front building. The building meets the minimum required setbacks and additional screening measures have been installed with the initial construction. The buffer screening in a large retaining wall is utilized for buffering from the residential neighbors to ensure that they will not be adversely impacted. The overhead door would be a decorative overhead door with frosted glass, with the door not being visible from Graham Road.
Okay.
And then there's some additional context, I think, is the answer to that question as well, but I'm happy to read it or not.
well, those are staff comments. If you have additional you want to add, that's fine, but I'll ask staff for their comments later.
So the list of 9 bullet points was actually provided by us, just as additional context for Acumen and how they
Oh, sure.
utilize the space.
If you want to,
Just to, okay.
if you want to respond to that.
Additional information is context for the variance request. Tenant that owns and operates mobile medical CT scan and MRI machines would like to occupy the south end of the building on a long-term minimum 10-year lease. The tenant would park the trailers behind the building in the designated trailer parking spaces. The tenant would also pull the trailers into the building for maintenance on the medical equipment. Also, this would be utilized for commissioning of new trailers. The tenant does not anticipate using the dock doors as would be used for a normal industrial operation. Having a drive-in door at the rear and the front of the building will be beneficial to the tenant to help maneuver the trailers in the building and to promote safety for the employees. Tenant only anticipates 1 to 2 trailers per day entering or leaving the building. There is no exterior loading taking place at these drive-in doors. They are only there to drive in and out of the building. Given number 4 and number 7 above, this use will actually decrease the amount of exterior loading that could take place nearest the residential neighbors. And overall, the use should be less objectionable than a typical warehouse operation.
And then number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
A front-facing drive-in overhead door is not permitted. The drive-in door with the forward entrance into the building for loading internally with trucks exiting to the rear overhead door with no loading in this entrance area. The building was designed for flexibility to be divided up into up to 8 smaller tenants, with all having the loading docks in the rear.
Okay. And number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. Anything else you would like to add before I ask staff for their comments?
The only thing I would add is I think this building was designed for smaller tenants that become local companies. We did not intend to land an Amazon that is sending trucks in and out every day. So we landed a small user that is adding to the tax base, and they provide a quality service for the country. Obviously, they take these trailers all over the country.
Excellent. I guess before I ask staff, again, I'll ask if anyone else was here wishing to speak for or against this. Seeing none, I'll move on. Staff, your comments?
Yeah, so we had one comment that was for both variances. The 2 variances previously were BZA 21-018, that one was denied, and then BZA 2022-001, and that was approved with 9 conditions. With this, we are unfavorable. That is for the negative effect it could have on the neighboring properties, and also because we don't feel there's practical difficulty based on how they've laid out their building and their design of their site. If this was to be approved, I guess I would look for a condition to be imposed on this, that the applicant submit a change in previously approved plan. And that would be reviewed by staff to review the landscaping, the species, and also how they're going to exit the loading dock. If they'll be removing parking spaces, currently there are there's some parking in that front area. So we would have to relook at the site, how the circulation and how the landscaping is relocated or moved. So if it is to be approved, my proposed condition would be petitioner must submit a change in plan which incorporates an updated parking / circulation plan and landscaping plan for staff approval. But with that, staff is unfavorable of both of the variance requests. I would also point out that the tenant could change in the future and a more industrial tenant could follow with this site.
Any response to that?
idea
You
to
get
that
5
last
minutes.
point there is, ownership would be willing to also make a commitment where if a new tenant were to ever come into that space, I might not get the language correct, but we'd be happy to come back before you to regain the same approval for a different tenant. And if we didn't get it, we would just decommission that front door. So it could only be utilized for this tenant unless we come back before you and say, hey, there's been a change in tenant. The new tenant wants to use it for this, and then get approval if that were to ever change. But if not, and if we don't get it at that time, we could decommission that door and just never use it again.
My recommendation remains the same, but BZA do have the ability to add extra conditions as you choose if you are to be favorable. But we're still recommending the denial.
Any last comments before I close public hearing? Mr. Bauer? Close public hearing. Small.
No, sorry. There was, on one of the pictures, you were showing the plants on the front. Is there anything to the back, like you're adding more of, or is that those circles that were?
So there are no changes to the site plan in the back of the building. We proposed 3 evergreens on the south end of the site, and then there's 3, I think, deciduous trees is how you define them, more on the right up against the building there. The neighbors came back and asked for 6 more evergreens on the south end of the site, which are the bigger black circles there. And we happily agreed. We had our landscape architect make sure to place all the trees within the line of sight of any of the homes. So we were happy to consider more, but the neighbors were happy with what we offered, or what we eventually agreed to at their direction.
The setback from 285, is that from the door or is that from the wall of the building itself? I guess that's what I'm confused, like, because there's already docks in the back, so does that?
Well, that's my question too. Why do they,
The dock,
doesn't that already exist, that setback?
the docks in the back were approved under the previous variance. So they are also too close to the residential. It's to the loading dock facility, and it is to the residential property. Those were, so the first variance where it was only for the distance. It was not on the front of the building, it was in the rear of the building. So they had 1 variance. It was denied the first time they came to BZA. That was BZA 2021-018. They came back, proposed things like a sound wall, landscaping. I called them up if we needed
It's all
to,
in here.
all 9 of those conditions, and it was approved by BZA. So for some of you, this site might look familiar.
I was gonna ask about that.
And then now they are asking to put another overhead door on the front. So they need that distance again because they only got the approval for the rear. They did not get an approval for the distance on the front. So it's a new dock, or a new door for loading or exiting. And it has also got that second variance because now it's located on a front facade, which our code does not allow.
What's currently in front of, I know there's industrial on one side of it. Is there I know there's a neighborhood, instead of neighborhoods.
Looks like it's a house.
Pretty far back.
Hey.
Here, this picture kind of gives you an
Yeah.
idea. So Mr. Pear lives just south of the building there. He kind of manages the communications with all the surrounding neighbors.
I do have a question for the petitioner. Who will all be signing the document? I received a letter today and I really haven't had a time to review it. Do they all plan to sign it, or is it just the leader of the neighbors that has given some verbal?
Good question. Mr. Pear indicated that he was going to round up the neighbors' signatures. He's clearly had conversations with them and says everyone's on board. Unfortunately, he ran out of time to gather those signatures. So I still want to have proof of agreement, and we intend to, the best we could do at this time was an email indicating that they were good with what we proposed.
I think I'm good with questions.
Mr. Melbourne? Mr. King?
So the back variance is down, we didn't have an issue with that. So I guess I'm a little confused why we really have an issue here, especially is it the ordinances defines this as a loading dock because a truck pulls through it? Is that?
Yeah,
kind of the
it'd be
issue?
a part of the loading facilities, your loading, unloading. It's hard to, we're not gonna be out there seeing which ones they back into, and which ones they don't. I mean, if there's a large overhead door on a industrial
That's a
building,
loading dock as far as our ordinances.
it's,
And so the variance will stay with the building, not the lessee. The
Yes, we
condition potentially proposed, I guess my question is that even enforceable?
It's a condition.
If we put it in, that would be
Yeah,
one.
it is.
It is. Because I know we've had a few where it's similar. So really, this isn't gonna have a lot of traffic back, like if it, any kind of shipping, we're not gonna hear lots of truck alarms.
In fact, they plan to park some trailers up against where the dock doors are today because they don't intend to use dock doors. So it's literally 1 to 2 of these higher end trailers coming or leaving the building on a daily
And I
basis.
understand these trailers working in that kind of work, so. I get why you really want to have it, so. I don't know any other. It's the landscaping, if that's an issue, it's gonna come. from planning.
Ms. Peters?
So if I've got it right, I thought I heard you say they would be coming through the front and going out the back.
Other way,
Other way, right?
other way around.
Which one, they're coming in,
They would come in the
they're
back.
coming in the east
Brian,
side.
do you have comfort, Brian's Zarowski's on the line and negotiating on behalf of the owner. Do you have any indication for sure which direction they're coming and going?
Well,
Or
swear.
we'll need to swear on it.
I just don't want to incorrectly answer you if you can answer this properly, but.
Yeah,
The way it was explained to staff, I believe, is that they would be exiting out the front. But
one of your drawings had a drive in and drive out, If I
It's a
recall.
drive-in on both sides.
or did it say drive in on both sides?
I think it's both
This
sides.
does say drive on both sides, but
Right there.
In essence, it would be one way, right? Well, I guess for purposes of the variance, it really doesn't matter, right?
just if things back up, a lot of times they'll have if they're large enough, they might have a beeper. Which could be something that produces noise for neighbors. I know like our little Ranger, even that beeps when it backs, so. But mostly it's for larger commercial vehicles for safety that, lets people know that they're moving.
Which in this case, there'd be very little backing up because the whole intent is to keep the thing moving forward, right?
Yes.
Um,
This is a
Much like
trailer.
a fire
I
station.
guess my concern is, one, it's not a dock. A dock has a high wall that you back up to going in and out. It's not a dock, it's a drive-in. You just drive in, you drive out.
correct.
So to me, it's not a dock. I know there's technical terms, but when you're talking about a drive-in and drive-out, it's like a garage door.
And I think by definition.
And I
we're
don't call
trying
my
not to
garage
back up.
door a dock.
and that current back drive-in is a drive-in right now. It's not a dock that needs to be converted.
It's a drive-in today. And, just being able to drive out the front, and honestly, or it could be the other direction, I'm not 100% sure. But either way, it's less backing up to your point, because they're flowing through the building.
It's flow in, park the trailer.
Not to be splitting hairs, the variance is 200 feet for a loading facility, not a dock. It says a loading facility. There are other areas that will mention loading docks, but it talks about the facility.
Well, we've already approved the loading facility. That's
For
already
the
been done.
rear, yes.
Well, if the facility was approved for loading facility, but it's not loading. I guess I'm struggling with why we're saying it's a loading facility if they're not doing any loading.
Well, because it could be, but
But
they.
then unless they redesign it,
They're-
it would have to be redesigned in
I
order
guess
to be
we're
loaded.
limiting that
Well, they
risk
could
by
load, they could
coming
load
back.
from a flat, they could load with a ramp. And unload with a ramp, or certain types of trucks that are smaller.
I guess I'm thinking in terms of if we have to put some kind of caveat on there, that there would be no stopping there at the door. They have to come right on through or they don't. Does that make sense? So it can't be a loading thing if they're inside. So they
Yeah.
have to be inside, so to eliminate the loading issue, they'd have to come right in and then go from there.
Yeah, in fact, we're agreeing here that there's no exterior loading taking place at these drive-in doors.
So that would solve that.
Any other questions?
No,
Matt, we could add signage to the building to state no exterior loading at that location.
They have to sign in, or
If you would just speak.
we'd be happy to even place cautionary signage that says no exterior loading at either of
we
those
can make
doors.
that a condition.
I know we did something similar with the loop road on the south in the last approval, we'd be happy to add that.
I mean, I think that makes sense.
I think most of my questions were answered. I had questions about the parking spots coming out and what that would do, but that would have to go through the staff's condition recommendation of going under review. And then the future, what would happen if that tenant for some reason does not last all 10 years or after 10 years, wants to do something, they want to do something different, which we've addressed that. We've addressed the in and out. I understand staff's comment about practical difficulties. I think the practical difficulties are minimal here, but I do appreciate the safety piece of that you have talked about where we don't have backing in. I guess my question right now I guess to you is on the other buildings where I'm assuming there are loading docks or they are loading, semis are coming in on that back area and then they're backing up to the loading docks, right?
That's correct.
And unloading, loading, and then they're pulling out when they're done.
I think the safety concern was related to not having to back up while inside the building where there's all the employees are, so they can flow freely through the building. In addition to that, there wouldn't be any or much at all backing up outside the building because again, they're flowing right through the building.
I see, that makes sense. So because in this instance, we're allowing them to come interior
Mhm.
and to protect those inside or that might be walking inside to keep any backing up from happening.
People and
Forward,
delicate machinery.
Right.
Plus, this my thought just came to me is this is the end of the building closest to residential, so it's taking a step to try to be considerate of that, to put it as much inside as possible.
Those are all the questions I have. I will take a motion to admit all the evidence into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. I have a procedural question. Am I allowed to ask another question after I just did that? Having them do that motion, or we are done?
No, you can make a motion, you can talk about the motion, you can.
Am I able to ask him another question though about the docket? Before we make a motion on the docket itself.
I would say not, it's very close, but I accept all the evidence. Right?
Could you reopen?
I think you can't by unanimous.
If you vote unanimously to reopen it, you could ask a question.
Motion to reopen.
Motion to reopen, second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor raise a hand. All right, my simple question is, how many units are in this building currently? 8? Or how many business units?
So this will be, the owner actually has 3 lease negotiations going on currently. This is, to my knowledge, the first one that is actually going to start build out.
So, and out of how many?
Well, the leases they're currently negotiating, I believe, would fill up the building.
So there's 3 total locations within the
They're
building?
not, that is my best, that is currently our best guess, that it will be 3 because that's the leases they're negotiating, but they aren't inked yet. This is the first one that's inked contingent upon this.
And how long have you been seeking tenants?
This building was finished approximately 1 year ago, if I can make my best estimate, and Brian can speak up and I can review what he says if I am way off base on that, but I believe it was about a year ago.
So the way I'm seeing this, it was designed to possibly accommodate up to 8. But this looks like this tenant wants a large chunk of the.
That's
building.
right, yeah, so we
Roughly.
just,
So the potential.
I can elaborate on that if you'd like, Matt.
Unfortunately.
that's okay, Brian.
Unfortunately, I can't have you do that. And you.
Okay.
But where I'm trying to get us again with practical difficulties is trying to get tenants. We have a tenant, we have someone that's ready to execute a lease to bring a little bit of practical difficulty in the type of business and stuff that we can bring in. And this is help, right? So that was my, what I was trying to help from that standpoint. So that's, no further questions.
Do I need to restate it?
Do we need to restate? Okay, so
Okay,
admit
Chairman.
all the evidence again.
I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Ball. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries again 5-0. Take a motion on the docket.
Mr. Chairman, I move,
And this is request number 1, sorry, Mr. King, to reduce the minimum distance of the loading facility from 200 feet of residential property to 85 feet from a residential property.
I would move that we approve the request with the following conditions. 1, the petitioner must submit and change in previously approved plan, which includes an updated parking and landscaping plan as requested by staff. For whatever,
What was it on?
parking and landscape. It's cleaner than what I'm just saying. Second one, the petitioner must have signage that prohibits any exterior loading and unloading. Okay, third, that the
Approval would be
approval would
limited to this
this tenant.
tenant. Because you mentioned that there was something.
We would, in concept, we would come back before you to renew the variance if a new tenant wanted to use this space.
Procedural question, so would we say that the variance
Yes.
goes with, all right, so then condition 3, the variance goes with this tenant. That's my best.
Period.
Second.
Motion by Mr. King with 3 conditions, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Take a motion on number 2 to allow a loading facility to be located on the front facade.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this request with the same conditions.
Motion by Mr. King with the same 3 conditions to approve, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0.
Remember on your ballots, if you can write out the conditions, there should be a space for you to do that.
On request number 2, same 3
Yeah.
conditions.
I did too.
Yes.
Conditions above.
Take a motion to direct the Corporation Council draft written findings of fact.
Mr. Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation's Council Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variances requested presented in variance petition on BZA 24-010. Said findings specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this commission at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Mole, second by Mr. King. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Welcome to start proceeding forward, working with staff on the resubmitting of the property. And we will take final action in a couple weeks.
Thank you for your time.
Just for actual steps, if you just can email either Kevin or I with the landscaping plan and an updated parking layout plan. We'll send it around for review, and it's a pretty minor fee for a change in plan. I think it's $100 plus $10 per acre.
Okay, great. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is BZA 2024-011 Development Standards Variance for 835 West Worthsville Road. Petitioner is Eric Prime on behalf of Zinkin and Barton Development Company, requesting relief from 2 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. First is to allow an automotive repair and service use within 150 feet of State Road 135. And the second is to allow 3 overhead doors on a right-of-way facing elevation. Be sworn in by our secretary. Yes, thank you.
Do you swear on face perjury? Testimony true to the best of your knowledge.
I do.
Is anyone else here for this petition that's going to speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I need to get you sworn in as well, sir.
Do you swear under penalty of perjury? Testimony given is true to the best of your knowledge.
I do.
All right. Mr. Prime, name and address for the record.
Sure. Eric Prime, Bay Bailey Law Firm, 225 South Emerson, Greenwood, Indiana, here on behalf of Zinkin Park Development Company, LLC.
1 second. Is everything in order? Notices and receipts?
Everything is in order and in our files.
Ms. Swinehart?
With the municipal code and the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Prime, tell us why you're here.
Good evening. We're here this evening. I'm here on behalf of Zinkin Barker Development Company. That name may be familiar to you. They've done quite a bit of development work around the metro area, including several projects on the south side. The one we're here about this evening is the Kroger area, the Kroger retail shops located at 135 and Smoky Road. And specifically with regard to that area, we're here about the corner, the area that's outlined in yellow on your screen. This is the remaining outlot. Kroger is immediately to the far right of this photo. So this lot is at the southeast corner of the intersection of 135 and Smoky Road. Smoky Road's obviously going left to right. At the top of this picture, 135 is going top to bottom. And so this lot, as most of you know who have driven past there, has been sitting there for the better part of a decade. They've been actively marketing it and actively not getting any results. So finally, we were able to get 2 users who were willing to split the lot and finally develop this. So the split would look something like this, the left side of your screen. There is a bank branch that would be going on the hard corner itself. And then the remainder sliver, so to speak, of that lot would be taken by a Valvoline quick oil change facility. So that facility would sit between the bank branch and the existing Burger King that's to the south. So why are we here? Well, the bank is fine. It doesn't need any variance approvals in terms of the use or currently dimensional variances that we know of. That may come down the road when they get to the point of actually doing all the engineering and building plans. We're not there yet because we need to make sure that the second user, the Valvoline, can go in there. And before anybody does any heavy engineering and building plans, we need to make sure that this variance is granted. And the reason why these go as a pair is that if we were to just take part of the lot and divide it off for the bank, then it makes it almost impossible to find anybody to use that last part of that lot. So these really are a package deal, so to speak, because they can use the whole lot in a shared fashion. So we are looking at these are just examples of other Chase Bank branches and Valvoline facilities in the area. Zinkin & Barker actually has that pairing in other locations around the metro area. And so these are just simply representative elevations of what might go there, but again, not exactly what we're not saying either of these will be, or any of these will be the exact elevations of what would go in there, but just wanted to give you some idea of what we were looking at. But as I said, the bank is a permitted use. It's fine. We have no issue there. The Valvoline is part of a class of users that were required to be no closer than 150 feet to State Road 135. That was a late addition to the Unified Development Ordinance after it was originally approved. But it was sort of a callback to, you guys may remember the overlays that used to be on 135 under the old zoning ordinance. Well, that's kind of, I think, what the intent was with this amendment to the UDO, was to kind of add back in certain uses and say they can't be closer to the road than 150 feet. Well, so that's why we're here. The Valvoline cannot go in there as it's currently listed. So we need that. It's actually not a use variance, though. It's a dimensional variance requesting that 150 feet to be taken down to 0 so that it can be closer to the road than would originally have been permitted. Both of these users have signed letters of intent and internal capital approvals, so they're ready to move forward. They just are waiting on the green light from this body in order to make sure that the sort of the package deal can go forward. And that's why we don't have any more specific engineering or building elevations ready to go. They want to make sure that the use can be done. So we have statutory criteria for 2 things tonight. The first, as I said, was this 150 feet. The second is that also in that corridor, only 1 bay door is allowed. And obviously, as you saw from the pictures, let me jump back there, Valvolines typically have 3. So we are requesting the second variance tonight is to request the availability of 3 bay doors rather than 1 at the facility. So statutory criteria. If you're ready.
Yep, you want to go through for number 1?
Let's do the 150 feet.
Okay, to allow an automotive repair and service use within 150 feet of State Road 135. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
the petitioner is proposing to build a premium drive-through quick oil change service center, which will be constructed utilizing superior quality construction materials and be aesthetically pleasing, and will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. Unlike some other drive-through businesses, this service center does not require stacking or queues of vehicles, which makes it a good fit for that front area where there's already quite a bit of traffic with the Burger King and the gas station and folks coming and going from Kroger and the other tenants in the main part of the building. So Again, that's a health, safety type issue.
Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because?
If you look at the adjacent properties going along 135 there, starting from the south, not counting the vacant St. Vincent building, but going north of that, you've got an auto parts store, and then a car wash at a gas station, then a fast food drive-through facility in the Burger King. So a oil change facility will fit right in with the other automobile type uses that are along there. So obviously will not have any adverse effect on property values.
And then number three, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because?
Yeah, so there's a couple of issues here. One, as I pointed out, that this Valvoline use is actually permitted in the zoning classification that we have for this area. It's just that amendment that was done, 150-foot deal, that keeps us from being able to use that. So that strict application, it is a practical difficulty because it can't on this lot 150 feet away. Now it's out in the Kroger parking lot, right? And then secondly, we have a situation where all the other uses that have come in, the Kopetsky car wash that's just the south, they received a variance in order for the same reason, in order to fit there. And and the last thing is the way that I've described it, trying to divide up this lot. It was originally one lot to fit two users on there. This is really the only combo that's going to work to actually get two businesses on that lot. So that is, if we strictly apply the ordinance, we can't fit that second user, and it becomes, the whole deal goes away.
Okay. And then number four, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. For number two, to allow three overhead doors on a right of way facing elevation, it does look like you had the same answers for criteria 1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and 2 are basically the same, and so I won't repeat myself there. The third is that the practical difficulty on the bay doors is that obviously you can't run this type of business with one bay door. It just doesn't work. So the ability to have the 3 bays, they still fit on the small lot. It's still a small footprint. It's not any gargantuan, giant auto collision service center or something like that, right? It's just a 3-bay quick oil change facility that usually stacks no more than 2 cars at a time waiting. So.
Okay. And again, the structure is not regulated under Indiana 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. Anything else you'd like to?
I would just note that staff was favorable. The staff report was favorable. There are 3 suggested conditions that staff proposed, and we are happy to have all 3 of those.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi.
All of your stuff is back.
Okay.
All really encouraging.
Okay.
Okay. And there's no evidence of heart attack, no evidence of congestive heart failure,
Okay.
no pneumonia, no fluid on your lungs.
Okay.
Normal heart size on chest X-ray. Labs will look good too. I do think you have a early urinary tract infection, which may be causing, like, your body might be trying to fight it, your extreme fatigue. I don't
Okay.
have an explanation for the shortness of breath, like needing to catch your breath. I don't have any evidence that you're having unstable, what we call anginal type symptoms.
Okay.
But do I think you're probably
There's some HIPAA violations.
Yes, there are.
I don't know if they need those,
Yeah, I don't think they're allowed to say it.
But
All right. So, sir, are you wishing to add to what Mr. Prime said? I didn't catch his thought.
It's Bob Barker. He's signature.
I know, I'll be pleased to answer any questions you may have. If you'd like any additional commentaries or rationale, I'll be glad to provide that, but nothing specifically to add.
Okay. Then staff, your comments?
Yes, staff is in favor of both variances with 3 conditions. First, that the current lot is subdivided in accordance with the layout and Exhibit D in the staff report, which was the same as shown on the presentation. Second condition is that site plans for the proposed bank on the north lot shall, let's see, be created by subdivision must be approved prior to or simultaneously with the oil change site plans. And 3, that the bank shall be located on the north parcel and the oil change business on the south parcel.
That's all? Okay. Mr. Prime, anything else to add after that?
Nothing further, just to reiterate, we're happy with those 3 conditions and fully accept those.
Okay. And we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Small?
I'm good.
Mr. Milborn? Okay. Mr. King? Mrs. Peters?
Nothing.
Yeah, I have nothing either. Only question I guess I would have had was about the queuing. One statement in there said something about no, but there could be a car, but it's very lightweight, to your point. It's very rarely more than a car behind the garage bay, correct?
Yeah, because people are they're too impatient to wait, it's 15, 20 minutes a car, but I mean, if there's already somebody waiting, they're not gonna, they'll go shop. or do
I will
something.
ask one question. The front face is 135, right?
Correct.
So if there would be any,
It'd be in the back.
it'd be in the back.
Yes.
Any
Yes.
queuing would be in the back. Okay.
That's correct.
All right, then I have no other questions. I will take a motion to get all the evidence in the record for real this time.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. I'll take a motion on the docket itself.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request with the 3 conditions in the staff report. 1, the current lot must be subdivided in accordance with the layout and Exhibit D site plan. 2, site plans for the proposed bank on the second lot to be created by the subdivision must be approved prior to or simultaneously with the oil change site plans. 3, the bank shall be located on the north parcel and oil change business on the south parcel.
Motion by Mr. King with the 3 conditions to approve. Number 1, do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Take a motion on number 2 to allow 3 overhead doors on a right of way facing elevation.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the request with the same 3 conditions.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor to approve with the 3 conditions, raise a hand. All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Take a motion to direct corporation's counsel draft written findings of fact.
Mr. Chairman, having considered statutory criteria, I move that we direct the corporation's counsel office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance requested presented in variance petition number BZA 2024-011. Said findings specifically incorporate the staff report and evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion is Wilson by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Mr. Ron, you know the process from here. You're welcome to move forward working with staff, and we'll take final action in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any new business from the floor? Seeing none, any announcements?
Reminder.
Oh, reminder, Wednesday, not Monday. So it's Wednesday, what's the date? 29th.
And I will not be here.
And this will not be here.
I'll be in
Okay.
Boston.
Seeing no further announcements, a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Stop the recording.